Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, break them down, and pull out the key insights for you. Think of it as your shortcut to getting up to speed.
That's the idea.
And today, we're looking at something pretty fundamental, I think, to how a lot of us work now. What does success actually mean in a collaborative process? Especially, when the main thing left behind is just, well, chat logs.
Exactly. We've got three related documents here. Noro, we strive to success. One, defining collaborative success. And two, defining successful chat outcomes.
Okay.
And our mission really is to unpack how success is being framed and measured here. Particularly, like you said, looking at those chat logs. It sounds simple, but there's quite a bit under the surface about what makes a digital conversation actually successful.
Right. Okay, so let's dive in. That first source, Nor We Strive to Success, it kicks off mentioning team cohesion, general teamwork stuff.
Pretty standard starting point, yeah.
But then the AI asks this really pointed question, doesn't it? Like, okay, fine, but what does success look like here? What are the indicators?
And the human response is initially quite direct,
Yeah. Outcomes are chat logs, like this one. Simple as that.
which immediately begs the question, right?
Yeah.
If that's the outcome, how do you judge if it's a good outcome, a successful one?
Exactly. Is just having the log enough?
And the AI jumps right on that. It pushes back, asking how success is measured in regard to those logs. It even throws out some initial ideas, placeholders for things like clarity, completeness, communication style.
Okay, so it's already setting the stage for needing more definition. It makes you think, doesn't it? We have these chats all day, but what actually counts as a good one?
We rarely stop to define it. Which leads us nicely into the next source. One, defining collaborative success. This one seems to broaden the perspective.
Yeah, it's just success isn't just one thing. The AI apparently breaks it down.
It does. It proposes these multiple levels. The first one is quality of interaction.
Okay, what does that involve?
Think clear communication. Like, can you actually understand what people are saying without ambiguity? Efficiency, too, are you getting somewhere without endless back and forth? And crucially, mutual understanding. Do people seem to be grasping each other's points?
Makes sense. Like, does the conversation feel productive and clear?
Precisely. Then the second level is effective task completion. This is more about the results.
Right, the hard outcomes. Did we actually do the thing we set out to do? Gather the info, develop the solution, whatever it was.
Exactly. And the measurement seems pretty straightforward there. Did we meet the deliverables? Were they up to standard? On time?
Okay, so interaction quality and task completion. Seems like a solid start.
But it goes further. The third level is continuous process improvement.
Ah, so are we getting better?
Yeah, basically. Are we learning from how we work together? Are we taking feedback on board, adapting? It's about evolving the collaboration itself.
That feels important, but maybe harder to measure directly from just a chat log.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Although maybe you could see evidence of feedback being discussed or changes being implemented over time.
True. Okay, what's the fourth level? You mentioned 4.
The fourth one is really interesting. Meta-communication effectiveness.
Meta communication. So, talking about talking. Or talking about the work process.
Exactly that. It's about whether the discussions about the collaboration planning, clarifying how you'll work, understanding the process, whether those actually lead to better outcomes.
Huh. I hadn't thought of that as a separate layer of success before.
Me neither. Not framed quite like this. The source mentions something called the placebo pipes placeholder concept here.
Placebo pipes, what's that?
It seems to be a placeholder name for, like, specific communication protocols or ways of structuring discussion. The idea is that even if the structure itself seems a bit arbitrary, like a placebo, just having a structure for meta-communication can lead to clearer understanding and more focused action.
So the act of discussing how you work, using some kind of framework, helps the actual work.
That seems to be the implication. It highlights that talking about the work matters. And then, significantly, the AI asks the human which of these levels, interaction, task, improvement, meta-communication, they feel is most critical for their specific collaboration.
Okay, which sets us up perfectly for the third source. 2, defining successful chat outcomes. This one sounds like it gets really specific about the logs themselves.
It does. It zooms right in on defining and measuring success within the chat log, tying back to both the interaction quality and the task completion aspects we just talked about.
All right, so how do we measure interaction quality in a chat log?
Well, the AI proposes metrics. For clarity, it suggests looking for things like absence of ambiguity placeholder. Can someone reading the log later easily grasp the topics and decisions?
Okay.
And also logical flow placeholder. Does the conversation make sense chronologically and thematically?
Right. not jumping all over the place. What about completeness?
That's about capturing everything important. Does the log meet the coverage of discussion points placeholder? Meaning, were all the necessary topics discussed?
Yeah.
And does it include inclusion of all agreed elements placeholder? Decisions made, reasons why, action items agreed upon.
Got it. So clarity, completeness. What else for interaction?
Efficiency. This is about focus. The metric suggested is ratio of relevant information to total content placeholder. Essentially, how much of the chat is signal versus noise? Was it a tight discussion, or did it wander off topic a lot?
We've all seen those chats that could have been 5 messages instead of 50.
Exactly. And interestingly, it brings back metacommunication effectiveness again, but specifically in the log. Is it just looking for evidence, like placebo pipe resolution leads to concrete steps placeholder? Can you see in the log where a discussion about process actually led to a clear action plan?
Okay, that's quite detailed for just the interaction part. What about measuring task completion from the chat log?
So moving to the task side, actionability is a big one. Can you easily tell what needs to happen next?
Right, like who does what by when?
Precisely. Metrics proposed are presence of explicit action items placeholder,
Yeah.
and clarity of ownership and deadlines placeholder. If you have to hunt for the next steps, the log isn't very actionable.
Makes sense. What else?
Decision tracking. This is critical for accountability and context later. Are there explicitly stated decisions placeholder in the log?
Not just hinted at, but clearly stated.
Yes. And is there a summary of rationale placeholder capturing the why behind the decision, not just the what?
That's often missed, the why.
It really is. Then there's information capture. If the point was to gather info or insights, did the log actually capture it accurately and fully? Metrics here could be accuracy of recorded information placeholder and completeness of findings placeholder.
Okay, so decisions, actions, information, anything else?
One more, alignment with objectives. Does the conversation, as recorded in the log, actually seem focused on the overall goals of the task?
So staying on track.
Yeah. You can evaluate that through relevance of discussion to task objectives placeholder. Is the chat actually contributing to the goal or just, chat?
That's a lot of potential metrics.
It is. And the key point made is that a truly successful chat log needs both high-quality interaction and evidence of effective task completion. They work together.
You can't really have one without the other for true success.
Not according to this framework, no.
Yeah.
And the source ends with the AI prompting the human again. Okay, given all these potential metrics for interaction and task completion of the logs, which ones are most critical for what you're trying to achieve right now?
Right. It brings it back to context. So pulling this all together, what we've seen is that success in these collaborative chats is, well, it's layered. It's not just, did we finish?
Not at all. It's about the quality of the conversation itself. Clarity, efficiency, understanding. It's about hitting the task goals, obviously. But it's also about improving the process over time, and even how effectively you talk about the process.
And specifically for the chat logs, the main output, there are these quite concrete ways to think about measuring their quality, clarity, completeness, actionability, decision tracking.
Exactly. It gives a much more structured way to evaluate something we often just take for granted.
I think that focus on metacommunication is particularly interesting. The idea that deliberately discussing how you're working together is itself a factor in success.
It really stood out to me too. And having those specific metrics for the chat logs, even if they're just placeholders for now, gives a practical handle on assessing these digital interactions. It moves beyond just a gut feeling about whether a chat was good.
Yeah, it provides a framework. For you listening, this deep dive really highlights how success can be viewed and maybe even measured on multiple levels, even in something as everyday as a team chat.
And that leads to a final thought, perhaps. Thinking about these different facets, the interaction quality, the task results, the process improvement, the metacommunication, and all those specific log metrics, how might you start to evaluate the success of your own digital collaborations? What aspects feel most important for your own goals? Something to maybe reflect on next time you close a chat window.